My channel is PG-13. When I make videos and say, "Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing?" Blah, blah, blah. When we're playing, there's the oh shit, and there's this video with Same Old G and I, and we're talking about stuff, and it was actually the Veil because we're transferring ownership of the GM chair from him to me, and then we start talking about this other stuff, and you know, G, you know, will swear, he just doesn't give a crap. And then I start going because we're talking about somebody else. We're, you know, it's funny.
If somebody does it, if somebody does it, everybody will start doing it. So
it's all done.
Yeah.
So first, I'll go to the magic type stuff. If you have any questions, but before you have any questions, here's my consideration as far as spell miscasts. You got a couple choices. I really don't care either way. It's more like, you know, how much do you trust me? There's the one way we could do where we actually have a table, you know, where you can roll. I can roll on a miscast and find out what happens. There's the other way, which I've done with Marcus. I don't know if you guys have played with Marcus at all. But what we did basic fantasy. But what we did is if he had a failure, he'd roll a d6.
And tell you the
it was the same as what I like to do with ability checks or skill checks is like you roll a separate d6, and depending on how high or low you roll on that, that's the degree of success or failure you have. So if you roll a d6, if you fail and you roll a d6 and you roll a 1, the failure's not so bad, you know. And then we roll with it, we make it up. And if you roll a 6, it's horrific. It's like everybody can run, you know. So I mean, we could do it either way. We could do it that and kind of play it by ear, and then you have to trust me.
Is that a straight roll, or is that modified by intelligence or anything?
No, it's modified by how well he rolls that die and if it's loaded.
No, but that sounds like less work, right? I don't want to make you do extra work, and that sounds good. I mean, because we'll do it on the spur of the moment, unless you feel if it's easier for you to do the table beforehand. Whatever. You know, makes it easier for you. Yeah. Right. So it sounds like you could roll the die in the spur of the moment, and within the context of the situation, you know, just make something up. I think that's easiest. Yeah.
And as far, okay.
The only question I had was, what did you decide to do with the starting spells?
Oh, see, that's what I was going to say. The starting spells, I don't have the I didn't actually write the numbers down, but I'm going to be pretty generous. Like I want you to have access to a bunch of spells that you can then fuck up. That's friends, you know. So yes, I mean, I'm assuming, especially, you know, the backstory you wrote for your characters, where they were apprentices. You know, you have to have been able to find something. You know, some stuff you may not be able to understand. One of the neat things about the miscast table, because the actual criteria for like what would make you have to roll a saving throw and what would start to give you a negative modifier to that's mostly straight out of the VAM thing from Lamentations. You start to realize that, like, hey, I could have an 8th level spell. Like I could find an 8th level spell. I could try to cast it out of this book. It's much higher level than I should be able to cast. All of a sudden I'm making the saving throw at like -7, but technically,
Theoretically,
you can cast these like world-bending spells, you know. Like, okay, but you just have to have really big balls to do it.
Yeah. So, are you going to provide the spells? Should I roll like intelligence checks, like they do in AD&D or something?
I don't want to do the AD&D thing.
Oh, you didn't? That was like the page 10 on the.
Yeah, I've got that one.
Yeah.
Wasn't it you that wanted to do it, Ivan?
I don't necessarily want to do it that way. I mean,
okay. All right.
But I would say, you know what, like I'm probably gonna let you choose like a few. I'll write something up and then give it to you and say, here you go.
Yeah,
I'll probably let you choose a few spells, and then I'll have you roll randomly.
Sure.
You know, because that's what we did. That's what we did in the Lamentations in Prussia game. Like literally, I had Lee roll. What you're supposed to use, roll like what level spell you have, and then roll randomly on the little table. And that's how Lee ended up getting Speak with Dead and Simulacra. It was great.
That's an awesome set of spells. Yeah.
Well, it was, but the way Lee played it was great because he's talking about voices of the dead in my head, and he's, you know, it was great. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But you understand the rest of the kind of the magic system where you can cast the minor magics if you remember to spell. Once you cast that spell, that effect's gone.
You know, and this being basic D&D, you know, like for example, you just mentioned the Speak with Dead. Like
Right.
if you role play and go the extra mile and, you know, have the guy go to the dead guy's tomb and you know, cast a spell at the tomb in the cemetery, whatever, you give like situational bonuses for the magic saving throw. That's interesting to know beforehand, right? So maybe I can stack things a little bit in my favor. You know what I'm trying to say?
If you want to be creative, yeah, you know. It doesn't mean it'll work, but you can try. You know, I encourage some creativity. You know, yeah. I mean,
that just gets like a +1 or +2 to the save. So instead of being the save at -7, it's the save at -5. Hey,
well, yeah. I mean, I would encourage you to get as creative as you want. Like if you look at the summon spell in Lamentations of the Flame Princess, that's a great spell where it's a first level spell, but the idea is that you can stack the deck in your favor by buying, like you spend a lot of money and then you like make all this magic circle stuff and whatnot. And Matt Finch has a great thing in Swords and Wizardry about this, like where like access to these other, you should make things rituals. Like there's not really the 9th level or 8th level spells in that game, but like go ahead, use those spells, but make up like, okay, you've got to do all this crap.
Yeah. Okay.
And the other way you can stack the deck in your favor and summon is you get a bunch of helpless sacrifices.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah.
And well, my magic user in Lamentations of Flame Princess, I played him up till 7th level till he got killed. He was making friends with all of the orphanages. He was given to all the orphanages in town. Wow. He was a terrible person. He really was. But his my plan was to have like a puppet show or something like that. Lock the doors, tie all the kids. You know, it was
oh my gosh.
My father. But you know, it was. But I say all that to say this: like, if you start coming up with like, hey, like if I do this and that, like, yeah, go ahead. You know.
Okay. Cool.
You know,
cool.
Make shit up and see how it rolls.
Yeah.
But other than that, with the spell point system is pretty.
Yeah, but the spell points, like for example, if I have 2 3rd level slots, let's just go with that. And do I have to memorize like 2 copies of Fireball, or could I memorize like Fireball and Lightning Bolt, and then use the slots or don't I even have to prepare them? You
don't have to prepare anything at all if you don't want to. So but that means that you're gonna be free casting, but you're gonna be making saving throws to cast the spells, and also and also then you don't get the benefit of like having all those minor magics. Like, you know, the whole thing with like Lee when he was speaking with the dead or when he was hearing the voice of the dead all the time, that he had remembered the spell
because he had it
always in his head.
Got it.
You know, I've had the typical thing is like the people remember like Fireball, and then they're like lighting, like, you know, they got the flame on their finger, they're lighting things on fire and all that kind of junk. But you can get really creative with that.
But if I have like say the 2 slots for Fireball and I memorize 1 copy of Fireball and I cast it once, it's gone. So if I want to cast it again, I use the 3 slots and then I have to cast on safely. Is that correct?
Yeah. Okay. Like if you've memorized something else, yeah. I mean, so you can memorize spells like absolutely right out of the book raw, or you can mess with the points a little bit. You know, I like that point system that Matt Finch made up though, because you know you can. It's pretty simple, but like if you want to memorize nothing but magic missile, you can, but you're going to run out of slots. You're going to run out of slots before you use up all your points. You know.
Yeah.
Unless you know. Anyhow.
Yeah. Got it. I think I understand it. Excellent.
I got a small question about magic. I'm not playing a magic user. This is actually the first time I'll be playing Lamentations. I have played Labyrinth Lord before, and I think it may be similar. But I was going to say about reverse spells. If you can free cast, is there, I mean, you know, like light or dark, do you have to prep for that, or can you, you know, change it on the fly? Then again, I don't know too much about the magic. You know,
they're typically they're different spells. Like you know, light and dark or something like that. The one thing that I decided with this, and this is Ivan. This is not Lamentations. Is that if you want to, you know, say you're casting a Fireball again, I guess, and you really decide that like, hey, I don't want this to be a ball of fire. I want to shoot like a beam of flame at this one guy. You know. Yeah, I'll let you try that. Maybe you have to make a saving throw and you get a big plus to it, because that shouldn't be that hard to make the spell do that instead, you know?
Yeah.
It should work.
The shorthand version, I guess, is if you do something off-label, there'd be a saving throw.
Yeah, it'd be a saving throw, but if it's related to the spell, if it's like something really, really close,
yeah, it won't be bad.
You're probably gonna have a huge plus to it. Where it's probably gonna be very, unlikely that you're gonna screw it up. Because the idea is like if you read the spell description in like OD&D, I've got a couple clones like Delving Deeper. They're like 2 lines. It doesn't tell you anything. It's just this kind of like, this this creates a wall of force. And you're like, what? And then you make up what the hell that means. I like that. I like that kind of vibe.
Sure. Is there any way to gauge the power or the power level of the spell, so to speak? Like more flame or some kind of a force wall, whereas anything like that. I'm just trying to get a loose, basic grasp of the concept of the spells, but to differentiate the power. Like if you put more power into it, like where you could maybe get physical damage from doing that, so to speak, or some kind of a deal.
Oh, like I hadn't thought of that, but like off the cuff, like I suppose. If Aloy wanted to make a saving throw at a considerable negative,
we'll just go with the benchmark.
You know what I mean, like raise the damage or whatever the spell could do, or anything like that.
Up.
I don't mind trying that. I mean, it's probably going to not work, but why the hell not?
You just got me thinking in different ways, haven't
that's the thing. It's like it's not a free-form magic system as such. There's definitely still the spells, but I don't mind you saying, hey, I want to do this, and we can have the quick 3-second chat. I'm like, okay, well, just pray to God you roll a 19 or a 20, or something. Okay. I don't mind. Worst thing that happens is it doesn't work.
Yeah, so the idea is to memorize a couple of spells and leave some empty slots.
You can. I mean, most of the time when I've used a system like this, people just memorized everything. They had all these minor magics, and then occasionally they would free cast, and then you're rolling at maybe like another negative because you're free casting over a spell you memorize. You're trying to have your cake and eat it too. So your punishment for that is you take a negative to your saving throw.
Got it. Okay. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, the one other thing is you said that the magic users are not welcomed, so we should have alternate professions for the wizards. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I would just have alternate professions for everybody, but yeah, in this particular world, in Mars, we'll go There's two things you have going against you. The Talons actually claim magic as their own. So they don't. I mean, they have a certain level of tolerance. For really minor stuff. But really, if you start being very obvious, there's a good chance they're going to come knocking at your door. And the second thing is mage. Right. And the second thing is, overall, the vibe is kind of like people are going to distrust it a little bit too. So you just have to be circumspect. I mean, there's a good chance that perhaps your mentor may have disappeared because of that. We don't know. We'll find out.
Okay. Yeah, so it's like a secret society thing. So the one of the wizards would be like a sage, the other would be like I don't know, stone cutter or something, the strong one, and I'll make up some professions, like some cover professions for each, right? So. Because they would then keep it hidden so they don't get caught or lynched or anything.
All right. And I don't mind actually, and now we're on this, I don't mind doing some kind of a stable of characters, kind of like an Ars Magica or a troop style play thing, where if you want to, take one guy at one time, another guy at the other time, I don't mind having that sort of thing go on.
Sure.
I mean, actually, it's kind of intriguing to have a home base where the wizard can go back and say, "Here's some stuff, to guys."
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And pray to God nobody else finds out where that safe house is and kills the other 2 wizards. But
exactly.
Not that I would do that.
Who, me? Nah.
Yeah. But anybody else? I mean, I assume if you want to try, it's probably gonna be kind of interesting for you guys to flesh out your secondary or tertiary character, and if you decide, hey, I want to take this guy out for a spin, why not?
Yeah. Let's see what else. So the saving throws, for now we just jot down the ones in Lamentations, right?
Yeah, and I'll probably before we start, like, give you, like, if I tweak something, I'll let you know, and it won't be very different. It is my own aesthetic. OCD. Well, you watched the video, or
yeah,
say,
I watched the video.
It's my own. Actually, hell, if you go on my channel, you can find video after video from years ago on saving throws. it's ridiculous. Forgive me. I went down this rabbit hole that was insane, but.
You're doing all this interesting stuff. Might as well do your. If that's something you've always wanted to try, go ahead.
Right. But as far as the actual setting, it is, we're going to call it Mars for the hell of it.
Yeah.
But I put out those actual races that I stole from science fiction.
Right.
Which so those are gonna be your principal races. Humans are
there any like skyships or anything like that in the setting?
No, right? I mean,
no?
Right as of now, like, essentially, and part of this is stuff that you just simply your characters don't know, and part of this is, more like common knowledge is that people kind of know that at some point in the past, the society was much more advanced. There are ruins, there's evidence that things and stories that things used to be a lot more advanced, and that humans were nothing more than a slave race, and there was some kind of great war. And that things like the Anthem, the Talons were responsible for that.
All right.
So the stories go. In reality, was there technology? Yeah. You may end up having some barrier peaks moment where maybe you find some.
Is there any seas or oceans in this version of your Mars?
Yeah, I mean it's not going to be as desolate as some versions of Mars. So it's a dying planet, but it's not quite there yet. It's starting to die. There's much more desert than there used to be.
Okay.
The city of Vesta is like really it gets its water from wells, but it's not like there's no water anywhere. It's just the planet's becoming more and more inhospitable.
Okay.
There's more desert. There's more. What's the word I'm looking for? Just a place where you just can't live.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not the Dune planet, but it has probably smaller areas of jungle.
It's getting there. Yeah.
It's on the way.
And there is that kind of I'm going for that vibe where there is like kind of the two gods. There's Bela, the god that was just the god of Mars. And that there's another god, Anu, Anu, who is worshipped kind of as like this harvester, this reaper, like the guy that's taking Mars because Mars is changing hands. It's becoming a dead planet. And there are rumors, whether or not this is true, that the Antha, the Talons, or the Talons, the sorcerers, let this other god in. And that was part of the war, is actually making war against the god of Mars himself. And these are not gods that manifest themselves and show up and poof, as far as they're.
Okay, so I missed a bunch of the updates this weekend because it was a bit crazy for me, and I saw the images of the different races that you posted. Could you, off the top of your head, tell us, which ones are sort of friendly towards humans, or are they all antagonistic to us? Because the first time I read, it sounded like all the aliens are against us, and some of them may be like our keep us slaves or something.
Right. Okay. Well, the ones that are really friendly to you guys are. Yeah. No, the one I was thinking. There's the ones that are friendliest towards humans are the Ishtarians, and these are something I stole right from Paul Anderson's Fire Time. So these are essentially centaurs, but they have cat-like lion bodies.
Sort of,
and they're
friendly.
Very long-lived. They're tolerant of people. They're not like super friendly, but they live for human generations, and so they kind of have like a centaur vibe, if you know what I mean. Like, so they're the closest thing you have to like Vikings or noble warriors. They're not savages. They are, they have a society, but they're, it's medieval anyway. So they're a little on the primitive side, but they're the kind of creatures that would have friendships like with a family, because to them, like humans, just they're gone. You see them when they're a child. Next thing you know, they're an old man, and next thing you know, you're burying them. So that it's easier for them to have a friendship with a family.
Got it.
I certainly don't
lineage.
mind.
Yeah. That sounds
I certainly
interesting.
don't mind if one of you guys decides that you're friends with, or your family is friends with one of these creatures, because there are some, in the vicinity. But they're kind of like, the rangers of the world, for lack of a better word, the non-human rangers. Yeah.
And Vesta is a human city, and it's free.
Yeah.
There's no alien overlords over it.
There's no alien overlords.
Okay.
I mean, essentially, what happened was, when the war actually happened, because the people who are keeping humans as slaves, for the most part, were Talons and Antha. They're the most dominant. Scarans are another one that would have kept some slaves. They all would have, to a certain extent. Not the Ishtarians. And it's really unclear, like, who's really native here on Mars and who are people that have flown here or gated here, or however they got here, or whether they magic there. This is something for your discovery. But where was I going with this? There was a really poignant thing I was going to say. It was important. But see, age. But what your characters probably don't know exactly is that there was when the war happened, like, all hell broke loose, and this is a perfect opportunity. It's probably the best thing that ever happened to humans, is they could escape some of their bonds. And by the time the dust cleared, some time had gone on, they had been able to form cities of their own. And there was a part where, especially the most race most bent on conquest would be the Antha / Talons. They were just trying to rebuild what they had. And so they didn't have time to just go ahead and subjugate you again. So they got to be a point where they just tolerated you. Like, we don't want that city anyway. It's kind of in a crappy area. If anything, humans kind of get their cities in the crappy areas.
Yeah. Hand-me-downs.
You guys are kind of like the orcs of Mars. If any of you old enough to have read the article on Grumsh, the Martian,
Yes.
okay, and where Grumsh is saying, my people will live there and there and there and all these crap. Well, that's where the humans live, in all these shitty spots.
Okay.
So your city isn't necessarily, your city pays tribute to the Antha, because the Antha kind of sort of patrol the area, and what they patrol the area against are Tharks. So that there are the four-armed green Thark Martians, which are kind of like the ogres of the world, for lack of a better word, the ogres of the trolls. So, I mean, they patrol the area just enough that you can trade with other cities, that you can go out and, like, have farms. You can, and then they're not going to be, the Tharks aren't going to be attacking your city en masse, because they have to kind of patrol the area.
And you said earlier, and Jose asked as well, this is like basically medieval stuff, right? Like metal armor, swords, that kind of stuff. Not that I'm using any, but
well, I tell you what. One of the things, here's a good aside, is in using Lamentations rules, using the encumbrance rules, etc. There is nothing stopping your wizard from wearing leather armor. In fact, it's an incredibly intelligent decision to make. You don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
But and same thing for a specialist. What you have to watch out for is how encumbered you are. Once you get into that point where you're over a couple points, or you get into like the 2 points of encumbrance or so, then you're going to start making saving throws for your spells. Or if you're a specialist, anything involving movement, which would be things like stealth or climbing, or those are the big ones. Then it's going to start impeding your skill, your rolls. Either you're going to be making saving throws as a wizard, or it's going to be impeding your skill checks as a specialist, or anybody else. If anybody else is trying to be stealthy and they're encumbered, they're going to take a negative. If you have a 1 in 6 chance to be stealthy, and all of a sudden you're taking a hit of 1 more pip on a die, you have a 0 in 6 chance to be stealthy. That sucks. But but you can certainly wear leather armor.
Okay.
And it can be whatever you decide leather armor is. It doesn't necessarily have to be armor, but and same thing with chainmail. It doesn't have to necessarily. It has the value of chainmail. It doesn't necessarily have to be,
full chainmail.
Full chain or scale or whatever. And something like plate mail though is just incredibly rare. That's the big deal to get something like that fitted and made, and at least as a starting character, none of you have the wherewithal to, like, go have that stuff made.
And starting funds is like per Lamentations, right?
Yeah, I'd go ahead and roll. I think it's a 3d6 roll if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but we'll look it up.
Yeah, whatever the hell it is, and go equip yourself.
I was going to say, are some of the magic, maybe, or what would be perceived as magic, could possibly be artifacts or technology or anything in this world? I mean, I know we may not know that, but
that's an excellent question. That is a very good question, and yeah, more than likely, there are things that your characters would consider to be magic that aren't really magic. You know? Okay. But, just because an antha like has some kind of device and he's shooting fire out of it and people are lightning out of it and people are dying doesn't necessarily mean that's a magic item. He could just have a ray gun. You know, he could have some of the old technology.
But magic is alive in the armor, and since we're kind of based off that, as far as the humans in this world, or all the races in particular, about how much are humans more populous than the other races, or who's the predominant race in there? I mean, are humans kind of whittled away to be, small in number, or on the planet wise, who is up there?
I didn't do actual figures, but I mean, humans are fairly numerous. Just because we do one thing really, really well. And
yeah, I just
on the other hand, I mean, Ishtarians are not super numerous, but then again, when you're that long lived, you're not going to have a ton of children. So they're more of a small. Something like Sleestack you hardly ever see, because they're just the ones that you scare your children about. The Sleestack are going to get you if you're a bad kid. And then you pray afterwards, like, I hope to God that's not true, because they might get all of us. Because they just still scare the shit out of you, because it's like, oh my God.
They're like the Eloi to me. You know what I mean? Some kind of subterranean.
Yeah, that's exactly. And they're things that you may have never seen one. You may because they're not the people. They're not a race that really can communicate. They're not a race that's really going to interface with an awful lot. Scarens aren't necessarily very numerous. But Scarens are like some scary mothers. But then again, that's just like, in your city, you would have had more contact with people and stuff in your local area. And it could very well be there's some big Scaren city someplace. It's not something that's really you wouldn't have seen that. But I mean, it's a good chance. I mean, just that there's more of them than you would have met in your lifetime.
So the world ain't really mapped out, so to say, as far as from a human perspective.
Right.
It's still a lot of unknown.
Right. I mean, there's stuff that like you would have to, like, I mean, at least for you, like being a local, there's no real instant communication. That's part of why you go adventure. As far as the Antha, which, I mean, those are the guys out there's the Jem'Hadar, but I didn't want to call them Jem'Hadar. And if none of you read that story about the Antha, go read it, because it's one of those things that has those moments where you're like, holy shit, that's a cool story. It's one of those old classic stories from the 60s. But the Antha / Talons, they're the race that is probably the second or as predominant as humans are. They're the ones that have the most interest in conquest and what have you. And then Tharks, once again, they're not super populous. They're the ogres. They do exist, and the legend would have it that, like, they were used as kind of shock troops by the Antha back during the Great War, and now they have some kind of animosity between the two. But so they're around.
Okay.
But I would say probably humans and Antha would be your most popular races.
Okay.
But humans are definitely kind of marginalized,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Most of these races are 9 foot tall, and you know what I mean.
Well, there's 6 to 7. I mean, the Sleestack are a little short. The Tharks are just gigantic. They're not the 15-foot tall guys, but most of them are a little tough.
And are there like horses and cattle and stuff like that, or?
That's a good question. Most of the animals in the world are going to be really freaking weird.
Okay. So it's not
I was thinking about it. What do I want to do with horses and chickens and crap like that? And so once again, this is the like kind of meta plot is, humans were imported from probably Earth. You're probably the sister. You're probably right there. You're one of the stars. Yeah, right that one. Is it this Earth? It's no more this Earth than that Mars is the real Mars. But it's Earth. And I was thinking, what do I want to do with this? Do I want to? And I'm thinking that maybe to make things interesting, they did import some things like horses and some of the more familiar animals, so that you at least that you have something that's familiar. What kind of horses do Scarans ride? Well, they're carnivorous, and one of their favorite foods is the horses that people ride. So I figured, hey,
I'm glad it's not lizards, or this would be like Gru the Barbarian.
have we discussed?
I freaking love that. Somewhere in my mom's basement is issue number 1 because we had that.
Gru is just the best.
Did I air? Oh my God! That was blast from the past.
Have we discussed when we're going to play?
What's that?
Have we discussed when we're going to play?
No, that was our next thing. Is I know Eloy had one bad date.
Yeah, I got a week in July. It's the week of the 18th of July. I'll be out of town, so I can't play that week.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but that's the only, because we're doing Wednesdays.
Yeah, I'd like to do Wednesdays.
Yeah,
Wednesday,
so that's the only Wednesday that I'm not there is Wednesday, July 18th. That's the time I should be here.
Right, and then of course the 4th is the 4th. That's at least.
4th is the 4th. Yeah. I'll probably be around, but I understand. It's at night. It's the fireworks and the stuff, right? So.
Yeah, if we right. If we start on the 27th, I'm just looking. If we start on June 27th, that means that we play the 27th and then the 11th.
And that's every other
25th.
Week. Yeah.
And that would be every other week. So
okay.
Sounds good.
I'm okay with starting 27th.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, good with me.
What is start time? 8 or 9?
8:30 is better, I think.
8:30?
Because yeah.
How's that sound?
Does that sound good for everybody? Or is that too late?
I can do it,
And how long do you want to do? A 4-hour game, 3-hour game? What are we looking at here?
4 is a little rough. I mean, that's a little long. Probably like around the like hard. Well, not hard stop at 3, but around 3ish. I would say 2 to 3 hours.
Okay. All right.
Something like that. I tended to do with like the Lamentations in Prussia. We would get to this point where it seemed like this is a good cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Because I like to do that sort of that sort of thing. And then like with experience, it's it was more like if you can, it could be a 1 or 2 session thing, but if you survive the first thing, that makes sense. As it has a beginning and an end, then everybody levels up to 2. After that, we start doing experience. And generally, what I did with those guys, was which I like to do is more like hey, this session was worth 600 experience points for everybody. I'm not going to nickel and dime every monster and all this stuff. And if somebody does some like unbelievable role playing, or there was this really cool thing where somebody did, I'm like, yeah, you get an extra 100 experience points or 200 or whatever.
Okay.
And is everybody confident with the skill system as I laid it out?
Yeah, you're using the 12-sided dice to roll 400.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, you certainly are free to use 6-siders if it just happens, to add up to like a 2 and 6 chance or 3 and 6 chance. But yeah. And then if you play, if you play a specialist, you are not limited to those. And nobody's limited to those skills. Like God, Josh James had freaking mercantile skill where he was in a limit. And like we were playing things like where like somebody had a skill in alchemy or whatever, and you start to you just talk to me like, hey, I want to be skilled, or like somebody said, I want to be skilled like with horses or all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. No.
Well, can we decide that on the fly?
I would say decide it before you bring your character, like before you bring your character to the table. So like, and if you're not playing a specialist, so to speak,
yes,
then you've got that one other D6 or 2D12 pips. Figure something out that you're good at, and and or if you're a specialist, same thing, If you want to, that's one of the reasons. If you've seen like the Lamentations character sheet, there are blank slots.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
and that's like you make shit up, and you know, as long as it sounds cool to me, I'm like, you know, okay, yeah.
Okay.
A question on the OCR,
Yeah.
the opposed combat roll. You add the attack bonus, the strength bonus, and the dex bonus.
Right.
All at the same in one.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And then it's just a D20 roll. And so, like, if you have negative dexterity modifiers, that sucks. You know, if you have negative.
So it's, but it could be balanced, like say negative strength plus positive dexterity. Maybe it evens out. Okay.
And what ends up happening over time is the fighter gets really good at that because he's the guy whose attack bonus keeps going up. So it's all those things where we're both trying to grab something, you know, or you know you're pushing and pulling, or just grappling. It's down and dirty. It's really fast. It's it's a pose roll. Get done.
Yeah.
Let's move on, sort of thing. And you know I've used it a bunch of times. It works great. You know. Usually the thing to do is write down like what your OCR number is on your sheet, so you're not always going like, oh.
So you can just.
I saw that you did that. You know.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that I did the math correctly. Yeah. Excellent.
And I may use some of the Tim Cask. You've got a knack for rulings. Like if somebody actually tries to do something and you actually like roll that one, you succeed. You know, I may say, I might declare. You know, it seems you got a knack for this, and then that means you're more skilled at that from now on. I can be generous, but I like that. I like that kind of stuff. You know, other than that, just figure out like what how you guys know each other. You know, this doesn't have to. I mean, like I said, don't write pages and pages of backstory because you're probably gonna die.
Yeah.
Okay, so our starting characters will know each other.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh yeah, and that's just to give you an idea, like of what's going on. This guy Javed is a merchant, and Javed has got a problem. Javed has asked you guys to help him out.
He's got rats in his basement.
Yeah, and Javed is the kind. I'll tell you this, Javed. I mean, Javed very well could be the guy that your magic user thinks may have access to artifacts, and it could be very well be that he does. He's kind of a spice and everything else merchant. He's not the most powerful guy in the entire kingdom, but he's no slouch either. He's got a thriving business. But Javed is the kind of guy that like you get the feeling from him, and knowing Javed, you've probably done business with him. Javed cares about one thing:
money.
Javed.
Yeah.
Everything else is secondary. And he could be your best friend, but he would absolutely throw you, to the wolves for the right amount of money. He's just not a terrible person, but just sort of he's that kind of guy.
Are the backup characters we have? Do they know other characters too, or are they just? I
would say yeah. Go ahead, figure out like how they know you guys as well. Like I mean, more than likely I would say your backup characters would be at least friends with your primary. Like I said, I'm kind of intrigued with like we don't have to do this, but if somebody wants to take out a different character for a different adventure, if it makes sense, if go ahead. So yeah, I would say there's some kind of you can make it whatever the hell you want, like how all these people know each other.
I was thinking actually, are there guilds and like with the clergy, are there churches or any kind of affiliation your characters can be part of, where maybe you can have connections and also where they can know each other, like be part of the same guild, and that's kind of an easy way to introduce the next guy.
Well, I would say yeah, make something up, post it in the group, and if it sounds horrible to me, I'll say no, that's not working. But other than that, yeah, I mean, I haven't made up every detail about this giant city of Vesta because that's insane.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you had some kind of like if it was a monarchy or if it was a theocracy or what I mean, different.
This is, I mean, you've got the Vesta's ruled by a sultan, and it's not a theocracy as such. The primary religion is of Bela. But there are people that worship Anu. It's just it's a little less. It's more frowned upon. That'd be more of a cult than it would be a. But there's not. It's not a theocracy, so there's not going to be like wholesale persecution of people that worship this other god.
Cool.
Okay.
It exists. There are people that be more like. I'm trying to think of the right word. Yeah, they'd be kind of not pariahs, but a little bit. These are people who are freaking weird. So you might throw a rock at them every once in a while, but and and the city is mostly human, but like it wouldn't be unusual to see some Antha or Talons coming through, usually to get some kind of tribute. Usually what happens is they walk through, everybody kind of parts, and if a Scaran's walking through the town, people part even a little bit further because those guys are just scary. And it wouldn't be completely unusual to see an Ishtarian show up.
Is the magic human only, or is there like a cross thing where like getting Talon spell books, for lack of a better term, or understanding the Talon language, or is there a benefit to that? Are they cross compatible, or is the Talon magic accessible only to Talons, or do I have like zero idea on the subject?
That would be a good thing to find out and play.
Excellent, got it.
But it would be something. It would be. I could tell you that like just based on what they do, it would be something that like any wizard would give his eye teeth and probably both testicles to get to
figure out. But the point is, I have not had any exposure to that as of yet.
Right.
Right. Excellent.
But they are powerful sorcerers,
Yeah. But the point is, there's no, as far as I know, there is no access to that right now. So that would be something I might want to look into.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of a holy grail.
Okay.
If they're coming into town and everything, there has to be some form of communication. So I was going to ask about languages. Do we roll to try to see if we know any other languages? Or?
Yeah, I mean, well, you can roll. I mean, there's a common language. I'm not gonna make us like jump through hoops.
Okay.
There's definitely a common like Martian, low Martian, high Martian sort of languages. Just about everybody speaks like low Martian. High Martian would be more of like a upper level type language, and then like the races themselves have their own languages.
So you're going to use the Lamentations kind of rules for that as you encounter them. You can see.
Yeah, you encounter them. You roll and find out whether you know it, which is awesome. There's no limit to how many languages you get, but and that's same thing with like looking, the writing or anything else. You're like, I wonder. I think I may know. Oh crap! I do not know Elven.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's a good roll. I really like
much experience with that, and it was pretty funny. Like in the dumbest guy in the whole party sometimes just like. Clearly new troll or new like some high high Elfarian. It's like, oh yes, of course they and start speaking this fluent. Everybody's looking at it like, what the hell? This guy's talked to play poker with my dad. So that can be kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I need to read up on Lamentations. I've never played it. I've read a couple of the modules.
Oh jeez, yeah. I mean, those are meat grinders. They're fun, but to me, the biggest allure of Lamentations, for me, is that like it is the most slicked version of like basic rules ever.
That's the point. I didn't even bother to check them. Now I should get to them.
Yeah, the rules themselves. If you just take away like everything else, take away all the flavor text and whatnot, the rules themselves, you're like, wow, how come nobody else thought of this for encumbrance or for this? It's like really, 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 good. And then magic wise too, like I said, on the table, you can use the spells out of the Lamentations book. You can use the ones out of Basic Fantasy Role Playing Game. I'm not going to take away the fireballs. I understand why he did that, but I'm even if you find some stuff in Swords and Wizardry or whatever, say, hey, can I have the access to this spell? I mean, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Jose, have you played it before?
No.
Del? No.
Oh, no.
No, first time for me.
That was the last thing is the death. I want to use that if you guys are okay with it, I want to use that critical hit table where you roll a death save, so you can take somebody out in one shot.
Yep.
But
that's what I made 3 characters for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But because it works both ways. But the other thing is zero hit points. 0 hit points is actually, Eloy, you'll be interested. 0 hit points is like you're unconscious. You can actually knock the guy out and not be dead.
Yeah,
it's not like other versions where like you're constantly losing hit points. It's just like you're knocked to that. You're knocked to that. -3 is irrevocably dying. There's nothing that can stop it. You die in 1d10 rounds. You can make a speech. You can do whatever, but you're dying. You're bleeding out. -4 is or lower is instantly dead. And that's usually what happens. You get knocked to that, and it's like, oh, the guy's just a smear, or he's at -3, like, alas, my friend, But what I decided to do to make it interesting is you can modify that with your con modifier. So those last two numbers, -3 and -4, if you have a good con, then maybe you're not going to be, like I think one of your characters has like a +1. Well, then now -4 is irrevocably dying, -5 is dead. So you have one more negative hit point. You have a little bit of a buffer. If you have a crappy con, sorry.
Yeah, it's too bad for you.
I love that for one main reason is when you're in combat, people's going to start screaming medic. And it technically it changes everything because you got to drag bodies out of the way. You got to keep everything alive. Yeah. It's not like just like, oh, he's dead. We're down one man.
Right. That's funny because I never thought of that. And then Jason made a video and he's basically complaining that if the guy's still alive on the floor, then you have to worry about him as opposed to
that's been like something that's like actively used by people who fight real wars since like World War II. A wounded man is worse than a dead man for your enemy. Yep. Because it drains resources.
Yeah.
Because few people will leave a wounded man behind, like in real world armies, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, that brings up a good point. Because I just had this picture of like, your Jose's character just stabbing the wounded man. Let's go, he's done for. But it's up to you guys as in terms of like what kind of people you want to be. Whether you want to be, goody two shoes. There's no, I'm not gonna have to use alignments, but just like how I don't care if you guys are just a bunch of like really reprehensible thugs, or if you're more like the Magnificent Seven, where you're kind of like, a bunch of ruffians, but you'll band together for a good cause, or whether you're actually really good people. Just work it out amongst yourselves so you're not like driving each other crazy,
Well, I don't know if I could really role play a really good person, but I don't know if I'm capable of it, but I don't have to go all full on villain.
Yeah, but figure it out, and then too, like I would hope you guys just kind of role play this stuff to the hilt, like like make the characters come alive, because to me that's a lot of fun. It's like when they start to become real people.
Yep.
And the nice thing about this old school type plays that growth is usually organic. You have this concept, and as you interact with the other guys and with the environment, that's what's cool about it.
There's more fun. You
kind of you discover who these characters are. Like you got to watch. Like I think the guys came to like Lamentations in Prussia with an idea of what their characters are like, but like over time, they became like it was like watching Jaws. Like all of a sudden, these characters like came alive, and you saw who these three people were. And I've had that experience with other games too, where like I got surprised sometimes by who my character turned out to be. So I dig that kind of stuff. But other than that, any questions?
I don't think so.
Okay. So does the like Celtic Sioux mix sound okay, like for local barbarians, or the humans you should just stick to the city? That's a question I had, because I sort of made that up for when I put up my character. The first one is kind of like a barbarian, like plainsman.
Like a plainsman.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, those would be some real badasses. But like not everybody's going to want to live in the city,
Right.
But that's the kind of guy too that would really be, probably more friendly with the Ishtarians, probably, be used to encountering Antha, which probably would have a little bit of animosity towards them, or just.
Excellent.
Probably somebody that would have seen a Thark once or twice, or and had to run like hell.
And which is why I'm glad somebody else asked about the horses, because I was going to ask, is like, my guy good at training horses, or is he good at training giant lizards?
Giant chickens, like in fantasy, Final Fantasy, or is it
I mean, I'm not against. I mean, the idea that like some of these horses would have run wild, and some of these giant lizards, like I forget if they're thoats or whatever the hell they are in Mars. I have to figure out what exactly they are. It's not beyond. It's not out of the range of possibility that you could have learned to ride one of these giant lizards. You probably don't have one right now because they probably, that doesn't make you very popular.
Plus, it would eat me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and all the horses around,
always that.
small children. elderly people that can't get away. People my age or older, that sort of thing.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But after that, after the usual horse dog chicken thing, maybe not even dogs, like the animals, like the creatures of the going to be really weird. So
makes sense.
And there are, like I said too, there are some ruins that like just nobody goes to.
Okay.
Even the Antha, even the Scarens, like at least the stories say they don't go there.
Oh, okay. I got a question. The tone. What are we going for tone here? Like serious, not goofy.
Yeah, I would say more serious, personally.
More serious. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, there will probably be moments of hilarity.
Yeah.
Usually when somebody makes a bad die roll, but overall, it's up to you guys. We can talk too, like what's working for you, what's not working for you. I would say serious and probably, I don't want to say pulpy, but a little pulpy. Like I'm a little more like action. Like there's, there's a good chance that like I don't mind like you guys having like scenes where it's more like inactivity and talking or whatnot, but like there may be some Raymond Chandler moments where all of a sudden men.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Yeah,
there may be the Raymond Chandler moments.
Shooting. Well. Yeah. All right.
Shooting. But overall, no, I would say more serious. What you do is going to create consequences. I try to put like some difficult choices in your way where like you have to decide like, do I do this or do I do that? There's going to be consequences either way.
Got it.
So not necessarily grim, but high fantasy in a way.
I wouldn't say high fantasy. I mean, it would be. It's not gonna be dismal and dark and depressing, and everybody dies all the time, and woe is us. But
like Sword and Planet.
Yeah.
With probably like a Howardian vibe. It sounded like that kind of like.
Yeah, kind of a Conan vibe. Little Howard.
Yeah.
That's us, man.
All right.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I was thinking, looking through this book, I was thinking this game would be great to play Solomon Kane, and then in page 84, there he is. There's Conan. It's him.
It's the default setting. Yeah. I commented on Ivan's video, I think somewhere today that I read Raji's explanation for why he chose to set the game in the what is it, the 17th century, 15th century, something like that. 17th. And he says it's real world. I mean, he said he put the halflings and the elves and the dwarves because he figured if I'm doing a retro clone, I might as well retro clone the whole thing, right?
Right.
But his original idea was not to even have the demi-humans because he said he wants the weird horror. And he says the only way to make the horror pop out is to have everything else as mundane and as normal and as real world as possible. So when the supernatural pops out, it seems out of place, right? If you're battling trolls left and right every day, and an undead monster pops up, it's like, yeah, we battle these every once in a while. So. But if you're supposed to be real world and then an undead shows up, it's a big deal. And I mentioned to Ivan, that should have been a clue that I should have read the rule book, because if this guy had the insight to express his choices that way, to me that spoke of this guy's really smart. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, the game, he's supposed to be redoing the Game Master's Guide, which he's supposed to have been doing for like 100 years. But it's free PDF on his site, and it's full of like that his philosophy with that. It's pretty cool stuff. And playing in the Prussia, like that was the first time I actually played Lamentations like in the time period that he had it, and it was awesome. Because everything it becomes Discworld with a twist.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why he has no monster manual, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be super dark. I mean, like Lamentations in Prussia was it did not go way down the rabbit hole of like just horrific stuff. But like actually, I had some pretty horrific scenes. They did wake up and they had that little girl chasing around all over the place, and they woke up in some place where all the people were like hanging upside down with their entrails out. But that was a bad scene.
When I ran it, I my starting point was basing it on somebody had cast a summon spell in the 13th century that had totally messed up the world by opening a portal into a realm of water. So everything flooded.
Oh, nice.
Right. So, and then what I did was I just went to some global warming sites, and I found these maps of what England would look like, if the water level had gone up 50 feet or whatever.
Oh, that's
right?
awesome.
Yeah, and then just change the map, and away we go from there, right?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
because I always like that idea about the summon spell being, a game changer, possibly. Right?
Yeah.
Cool.
The nice thing about it is that it's really nicely presented, but this is OSR, so we know what to do.
Yeah. Worst case scenario, we know what to do.
We know what to do.
Right. But I mean, partially the tone is what you guys end up making it too. It'll be.
Yeah, but it's good to have like a baseline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like you hijack that, right? It's like we always tell the story where a friend of ours had this really detailed world, and it was like really grim and gritty. It was pre-Game of Thrones, but it was like everybody was evil, debauchery, and all of a sudden Eloy rolls this Aragorn clone, and I roll an El Cid clone, and we dragged it kicking and screaming into high fantasy.
Like we're heroic and helping people, and he's like, no, you're mercenaries. No, not really.
No, this is wrong. The line stops here.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Otherwise, though, they'll have some timelines going on where like things will be happening in the world, and whether you choose to engage them or not engage them, they're going to happen. I mean, if you choose to engage them, you could change the course of what happens. If you choose not to engage them, oh well. I mean.
Yep. Shit happens.
So just because I mean, like I'm going to let you like decide like outside this original adventure, like where you're kind of like going to like. At least for a moment, hopefully, unless you don't want to go work for this guy, at some point you're going to see like all these different things, and then that's my usual shtick is present all these things. Okay, where do they want to go? It doesn't mean the other things won't keep happening.
Right.
Yep.
There's a great adventure Raji wrote, and it's free RPG day. You can actually find a site too. It's like Doom Cave of the Crystal Headed Children. It's crazy, but what he puts in there, and this is like what I think is so great about it, is he says, if the party chooses to ignore this and they continue going on, should they come, this is what they will hear is happening in the area. Should they come back in like a month or 2 months or like 6 months, this is what they're going to find.
This is what happens down the line.
So So what happens down that kind of stuff is really kind of cool. So I mean, not that I'll write all that kind of stuff out, but I have that in the back of my mind. Okay, they didn't want to take that the bait for that. That's fine, no big deal. But this assassination attempt versus the Sultan or whatever it is, I'm just, pulling that out of my, but that's still going to happen,
What my favorite, I've only read the modules, as I said, and this is the kind of guy that he is, that he has the vision to like the signature module is Death Frost Doom.
Right.
I did get the original one, and I was like, it's okay, it's a nice idea, and I get the tone that he's going for, but something was like a little bit off. And then they remastered the thing,
right?
And it's just they reskinned the whole thing and they published it again, and it's like this guy has the vision to like go back, revisit this stuff, give it a new aesthetic, publish it out, and it's incredible. Yeah, it's great. It's super dark, right. But the reskinning effort it changes a lot of things. So it's very interesting. Very interesting.
We lost Delray, turned to a little blue man.
Oh, yeah. But like Ivan would say, this isn't about that, right? This isn't about the horrible death and destruction of Death was Doom. So
right.
This is Sword and Planet. Yeah, I'm liking that.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
Oh, there we go. You're muted, Del.
Man, you're freaking me out there.
You're muted, Del.
Yeah, your mic's off. Oh, wait.
Yeah, my screen just went black. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. I got you. I got you.
All right, so then we got until the 27th to come up with how our guys know each other, so we can chat about that on the
on the
Facebook page.
Yep.
And all right.
And got some time to read up. Yeah. So we'll be up to speed by
10 days.
Excellent.
Yeah. And any other questions, just post them in the group or whatever. I'm gonna stop recording this in a second, but it's up to you guys if I make this public or not public, or whether you want to keep it private, or
I don't care.
It's up to you.
Yeah. No objections either way.
Yeah. No, actually, I have some session zeros for some other games up there, and people actually watch that crap. And I'm like, okay,
sure, why not?
Yeah, you should edit that statement, but
Yeah,
I do all the time. I'm always just like mystified. I've said it in like a bunch of videos, like I can't believe like what are you people doing? Like you're really.
It's like that. It's like the old, William Shatner in Saturday Night Live skit.
Yeah.
This was a rendition of Evil Kirk from the Mirror Universe.
Evil Ivan from the Mirror Universe in this case.
Just send money. I should get a Patreon. Send money. Call the number on your screen right now. Call the screen number. I'm waiting to get monetized again. They promised me. And said that once you hit 1,000 subscribers, if you qualify, we'll remonetize. You don't have to do anything. You'll be remonetized. And
nice.
So far,
that's awesome.
Because they make millions. I think it was making 100 and change a year. Like which was it was RPG slush fund. I was like, hey, I got to get it, and like that's how I bought like the entire Hollow Earth expedition set.
Yeah.
I got got that little thing. I'm like, hooray! I'll buy the book.
If talking about RPGs allows you to buy more RPGs, I think it's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna do it for free anyway. So
right.
the thing I put in the discuss or the RPG video response group on Facebook was I talked about the YouTube thing when it happened, and which is fine. I'm cool with it. But the thing is, like, I have a hobby that pays for itself. Like my bass guitar playing has paid for itself. Like literally, like I've more than broken even with that over the years, and file taxes, and I can write stuff off. And I haven't bought anything in years, but it's paid for itself. And I would love for this to pay for itself, but man, I would have to. No. There can't be that many stupid people in the world to watch this and click on those ads. Or if I got a Patreon thing that would actually send me money. But if it did, and I can buy the books,
nice.
Hey, Ivan, I wanted to say that's how I found your channel and Jason and Room Slinger was because I picked up Hollow Earth Expedition.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to. There's hardly any information about it other, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
when I pulled up trying to find out about it, it limited to y'all, so which I'm thankful for.
That's a great
it was because of your videos that I started playing Lamentations.
Nice.
And I can't even remember where I first got onto your videos, but that got me interested in it. So
I got into CGA. And I think from CGA's YouTube page, I went to Anthony Runeslinger.
Right.
And from Runeslinger, I went to Ivan. And from Ivan, I went to like a bunch of people. Everybody that Ivan had on the thing, I just, like subscribe. So
I went to Jason and then to Ron Edwards.
Jason.
And actually, Ron Edwards is in my Empire of the Petal Throne game on Friday.
Oh yeah! Oh nice!
That's awesome.
Right? So there's him and Dyson Logos and James Maslowski and a bunch of others. They've had an ongoing game for quite a while. So so it's a small world, eh?
Yeah, it is. It's a small hobby.
And here we are. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go to sleep. I think I've actually.
Me too.
Salad. I made the salad after the gym, and I haven't eaten a damn bit of it.
Oh, that looks so good, a salad.
Yeah, I know. I post all these things of like what he's grilling for the weekend. He's got like an entire cow on the grill.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Jose, he put this cow on the grill. I'm looking at like, and I've been on this diet since January. I'm like, oh my god, I got to fly to Puerto Rico.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
Come visit. Yeah.
I'll throw a porterhouse on for you.
Don't tempt me.
Excellent.
All right, guys.
Okay, Jeff.
It's cool talking
Thank
to
you so
you.
much.
In a couple weeks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All righty.
I guess.
Take it easy.